famous pianist told blind black boy to play, just for fun. But he has an unbelievable gift. The main conference room at Vance & Croft Design felt less like an office and more like the bridge of a starship. Floor-to-ceiling glass offered a breathtaking view of the London skyline, a collection of architectural triumphs the firm aspired to join. Inside, the air was cool and smelled faintly of ozone from the army of humming servers and 3D printers lining the far wall. The mood, however, was tense, coiled with the nervous energy that preceded a billion-pound pitch. At the head of the room, Julian Croft, senior project lead, commanded the space. Dressed in a razor-sharp black suit, he moved with the predatory grace of a man who believed he was already living in the future. "Helios Plaza is not a building," Julian declared, his voice resonating with rehearsed passion as he gestured to the massive holographic display dominating the room. "It is a statement, a monument to efficiency, to data-driven design, to a world built by algorithms, not by guesswork." His eyes swept across the assembled clients and partners, deliberately ignoring Elias Vance, the firm's founding partner, a man from a different era who sat quietly in the corner. A senior engineer, a woman with decades of experience, leaned forward. "Julian, the simulations for the tower's wind load are impressive, but they're pushing the known limits of the materials. Is there any redundancy?" Julian's smile was a masterpiece of polite dismissal. He enjoyed these moments, these tiny rebellions against his vision. "Redundancy is a feature of the past, Helen. Our models are perfect." To emphasize his point, his gaze darted around the room, searching for a prop. His eyes landed on a small, quiet figure at the very back. Anya Sharma, a junior model maker. Beside her, on a small trolley, sat a collection of intricate physical models. He saw them as relics, charming but useless toys in his digital world. "Let me show you where real efficiency lies," Julian said, his voice dripping with condescension. "Anya, please." He beckoned her forward. "Let's put that artistic talent to use. Come up here and apply some of the new photorealistic textures to the plaza's retail frontage. Just drag and drop. Show our clients how quickly we can visualize their dreams." The insult was brutal and layered. He had reduced her highly skilled, detail-oriented craft to the level of a video game. He was asking a builder to paint a picture. Anya felt a flush of heat creep up her neck. She stood motionless, her hands instinctively resting on the symbolic object she had brought with her. A small, exquisitely detailed physical model of a single section of the main tower's facade. It was a piece she had spent 100 hours on, perfecting every angle. In the crushing silence, Ben, a junior draftsman beside her, stared at his feet, unable to watch the casual cruelty unfold. The air grew thick with the unspoken humiliation. The room's atmosphere curdled. The clients shifted uncomfortably, their polite smiles frozen on their faces. They were here to witness genius, not a public shaming. Julian's own team members avoided each other's eyes. This was classic Julian, asserting dominance by punching down, reinforcing his own importance by making someone else feel small. In the corner, Elias Vance's jaw tightened. He watched the scene with a familiar sense of weary disappointment. He had built this firm on the principles of respect for craft, a principle Julian seemed determined to erase, one efficient step at a time. Anya took a slow, steadying breath. She gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. No anger flashed in her eyes, no shame bowed her shoulders. She pushed the trolley with her physical models to the side, a gesture that seemed like she was conceding, putting her toys away. She then walked toward the main console with a quiet composure that was unsettling. Her walk was not that of a victim. It was measured, each step placed with the same precision she used to place miniature windows on a facade. As she reached the gleaming console, her fingers, stained with faint traces of paint and glue, moved over the touch-sensitive surface. She didn't hunt for icons. She typed a series of commands into a developer-level command line that few in the room even knew existed. A flicker of her hidden strength was revealed. The model maker knew her way around the machine's core programming. It was a small, discordant detail, a note played in the wrong key that hinted at a deeper composition. Julian, however, was oblivious. He had already turned his back, basking in what he perceived as his victory. He leaned over to one of the clients, a wealthy investor, and began murmuring about the project's stellar ROI. His voice a low, confident hum. He had made his point and moved on. He mistook Anya's silent compliance for surrender. He failed to see that she wasn't just standing at a console. She was standing at the controls of the very weapon he had tried to use against her. The tension in the room began to change, shifting from the awkwardness of a social misstep to the quiet, electric hum of something far more significant about to happen. The main holographic display flickered. The beautifully rendered image of Helios Plaza, the one Julian had been using to sell his dream, was gone. In its place, Anya had pulled up the raw architectural blueprint, a dizzying web of lines, angles, and calculations. But she didn't stop there. With another series of commands, she began to overlay the blueprint with environmental data streams. Not the polished, simplified wind simulation Julian had presented, but the raw, chaotic data from the city's meteorological office, captured over the past 10 years. Julian heard the hushed whispers and turned, his smug expression dissolving into a mask of annoyance. "What is this, Anya? I asked you to apply textures. Is that too complex a task?" His voice had an edge of steel, a final warning to get back in line. Anya didn't respond. Her focus was absolute. Ben, the draftsman, watched her, his heart pounding. He recognized what she was doing. She wasn't just looking at data. She was building a new, independent simulation from scratch, using real-world variables that the firm's expensive software had been programmed to simplify and ignore. She reached for the trolley she had pushed aside and carefully picked up her small, handcrafted facade model. It was the centerpiece of her argument, the physical proof of her theory. The model was a perfect 1:200 scale replica of the tower's lower 20 floors, complete with miniature balconies and facade fins. She held it up, examining how the light hit its surfaces, her eyes comparing its real-world angles to the complex data flowing across the screen. The small, handmade object, once a symbol of her humiliation, was now becoming the key to a truth hidden in plain sight. Julian strode toward her, his patience finally snapping. "I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but it ends now. You are embarrassing this firm." His voice was low, but it carried the weight of a public execution. The room was utterly silent. Anya was no longer just a model maker. She was a challenger, and the duel was for the soul of the project. With a quiet tap on the screen, Anya executed the final command. The chaotic data streams coalesced into a stunning, terrifying visual. It was a simulation of wind flowing through the proposed Helios Plaza. But unlike Julian's clean, elegant animation, this one was violent. A deep, angry red color concentrated at the base of the main tower, forming a vortex that spun with frightening velocity right at street level. She then isolated a single, horrifying number and displayed it at the top of the screen. Peak wind speed at pedestrian level, 120 kilometers per hour. The number hung in the air, a death sentence for the project as it stood. A wind speed of 120 kilometers per hour was not an inconvenience. It was a hurricane-force gust capable of knocking people off their feet, of turning loose debris into lethal projectiles. "The tower's curved facade," Anya said, her voice soft but carrying an undeniable authority that filled the silent room, "acts as a sail." The simulations didn't account for the Venturi effect created by the adjacent buildings. They only tested the tower in isolation. She held up her small physical model. "When you build it by hand, you feel the way the angles work together. You notice the channels, The computer saw a curve. I felt a funnel. A collective gasp went through the room. The truth was instant, visual, and undeniable. Julian stood frozen, his face ashen. He stared at the violent red vortex on the screen, a digital monster of his own creation. His entire narrative of a perfect, data-driven design had been shattered by a girl with glue on her fingers and a piece of cardboard. His hands, which had been so expressive and confident moments before, trembled slightly at his sides. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. His mind was a maelstrom of denial, panic, and cold, rising dread. Elias Vance, the old founder, leaned forward, his eyes wide. Finally seeing the flaw his own experienced, I had suspected but couldn't prove. The moral reversal was absolute. The useless toy had just saved them from a billion-pound catastrophe. The quietest person in the room had just roared the undeniable truth without ever raising her voice. The profound silence was broken by Elias Vance. He rose from his chair in the corner, and for the first time that day, the room's center of gravity shifted to him. He walked slowly to the front, his gaze not on Anya, but locked on Julian. His voice, though aged, was firm as granite. "Julian, you called our physical models guesswork. It appears the only guesswork here was your blind faith in a flawed machine." Julian, cornered and exposed, finally found his voice, but it was brittle with desperation. This is an anomaly. One unverified simulation run by a junior maker. It means nothing. He tried to regain control, to dismiss Anya's work as unprofessional and reckless. "Our certified software, the best in the industry, cleared this design." Elias ignored him completely. He turned to Anya, his expression one of deep respect. "Young lady, can you demonstrate how you came to this conclusion?" He walked over to her trolley and picked up another of her models, running his fingers over its delicate structure. "Show me. Show all of us." This was the moment of public vindication. Anya, given the floor by the firm's founder, stepped forward. She didn't look at Julian or gloat. She simply used her physical model and the data on the screen to walk everyone through her process. Her explanation clear, concise, and devastatingly logical. When she was done, she looked directly at Elias and delivered the line that would become a legend within the firm. "A computer can run 1,000,000 simulations," she said, her voice steady and clear. "But it can't feel the wind on its face. Sometimes, you have to build something to truly understand it." The simple, profound truth of her words settled over the room. It was a defense of her craft, an indictment of Julian's arrogance, and a lesson for everyone present. Julian tried to protest one last time, but the lead client cut him off. "Mr. Vance," the client said, his voice grave, "we are in your debt, and in this young woman's." The public reckoning was complete. Julian Croft, the man of the future, had been rendered obsolete by a timeless truth. 1 year later, the top floor of the Vance and Croft building had been completely redesigned. What was once a sterile gallery of digital displays was now a bustling, open-plan workshop known as the Physical Prototyping and Environmental Dynamics Lab. The air smelled of freshly cut basswood, sawdust, and the warm plastic of the new, advanced 3D printers. It was a space where technology and craftsmanship worked together, not in opposition. Anya was the head of the new lab. She wasn't a vice president in a suit. She wore a simple apron over her clothes and moved between a workbench and a holographic interface with ease. Her team, which included a now confident Ben, was a mandatory stop for every major project in the firm. No design received funding until it had passed through Anya's lab, where it was physically modeled, tested in a new state-of-the-art wind tunnel, and vetted against real-world data. An article in a prominent architecture magazine was framed on the wall. The headline read, "Vance and Croft's Tactile Design Philosophy: How London's Top Firm Reconnected with the Real World and Averted Disaster." The Helios Plaza project was moving forward, but with a redesigned tower that now incorporated Anya's findings, turning the dangerous flaw into a source of wind power for the building itself. The firm's culture had shifted. Young designers were now encouraged to build, to experiment with their hands. Elias Vance had a renewed energy, spending most of his days in Anya's lab, mentoring a new generation. Anya herself had not changed much. She was still quiet, still humble. But now, when she spoke, the entire room would fall silent to listen. She had not just won a battle. She had rebuilt the firm's very foundation. Julian Croft sat in the sterile, beige office of a mid-level commercial development firm. It was a significant step down, a world away from the bespoke suits and billion-pound projects he once commanded. His job now involved overseeing the construction of suburban strip malls. His ambition had been replaced by a quiet, gnawing bitterness. On his computer screen, he was scrolling through an architectural awards website. A picture of Anya and Elias Vance accepting the Design Innovation of the Year award for the redesigned Helios Plaza stared back at him. They were standing in front of a massive, beautiful model of the new tower. He closed the browser with a sharp click. The silence in his small office felt heavy. On his desk lay a high-end tablet, capable of running the most advanced design software on the market. It was a tool of immense power, but he now saw it for what it was, just a tool. It couldn't think. It couldn't feel. It couldn't warn you when your own arrogance was leading you off a cliff. He looked out his window, not at a stunning city skyline, but at a sprawling, gray car park. A whisper escaped his lips, a final, weary admission to himself. She felt the funnel. It was the ghost of Anya's words, come back to haunt him. It was the simple, devastating truth he had dismissed. He had worshipped the simulation, and in the end, he had become a pale imitation of a leader himself, a ghost in a machine of his own making. The final scene is back in the bustling physical prototyping lab. Anya is leaning over a large workbench, surrounded by young apprentices. She isn't giving a lecture. She's showing a young man how to properly score a piece of acrylic, her skilled hands guiding his. Her original small facade model, the one that started it all, sits in a place of honor on a nearby shelf, enclosed in a glass case. It's a relic, but now it's treated as sacred. True innovation is not about replacing the old with the new. It's about having the wisdom to know which tools to use, and the humility to trust the truths they reveal. The most powerful data is not always found on a screen. The final image is a close-up of Anya's hands, covered in the honest dust of her work, as she helps the apprentice make a clean, perfect cut. It's a quiet, powerful image of knowledge being passed down, of a legacy being built. What timeless truth does your modern world overlook? Follow for more stories where genuine craft changes everything.